Everyone, you wouldn't believe what just happened. $1 million company, no, I'm sorry, $1 billion company decided to do something terrible that makes consumers' lives worse. Now, this is something that's really shocking because this is probably the first time you have ever heard something like this happening, because this is just brand new territory. I just can't believe they'll go and do something like this. And to make this situation even more shocking, wait, I said I was gonna stop saying situation. To make this event even more shocking, it was Apple. Yeah, the people who make iPhones. They were the one who decided to do something terrible. I just can't believe what's going on. Now, obviously, now since I'm done with that unfunny joke, this is not surprising at all. I think we all know that Apple straight up do not care about their fans at all, because, man, they just treat them like absolute trash, which it kind of makes sense for them to do that, mainly because Apple fans will just eat up anything that Apple feeds them, and will also make it their life mission to literally defend every single decision that Apple does. Not so long ago, Apple has decided to make a lot of artists and tons of independent creators and just content creators in general life way more harder because of the brand new changes that they are forcing upon Patreon. Now, I think all of us here know what Patreon is, especially if you watch a lot of YouTube, and if you're watching someone like me, you probably watch a lot of YouTube, so I'm not going to explain what it is. One thing that you guys do need to know is how the Apple Store works. I think it's pretty well known that Apple asks for a 30% cut of basically just any in-app purchases you make if your app is on the App Store. Now, that is a lot of money to ask for, and it's something that tons of people wanted to battle against. I think the biggest company who ended up doing that was Epic Games. They had a whole campaign about that like a couple years ago, and I think they're still trying to do that right now. But either way, 30% is a big cut. And Patreon was one of those places that, for some weird reason, for a really long time, was able to escape that cut. They didn't have to give Apple the 30%, and we don't really know the reason why. But it looks like Patreon being able to run free from the Apple tax has ended, because they ended up confirming not so long ago that now, every time when someone who's using an Apple product and is using Patreon on the App Store want to go and donate money to one of their favorite content creators, Apple is now taking a 30% cut, which is a extremely scummy decision, and that is something that is just absolutely disgusting. A lot of content creators basically rely on Patreon to be able to do this on the living, because something that I feel like more people are starting to realize is that the majority of content creators you watch who like aren't extremely big usually don't really make enough money to do content creation as a living. Most of them are doing it as like a side hobby. And a lot of the smaller creators who are able to do it on the living, their Patreon is probably one reason why. Tons of people in their community donated the content creator money to help them keep on doing this. It lets them get more income. And that's something that's very important for content creators and also extremely big for artists, because they're going to be the people affected most from this, because Patreon and these subscription type apps are basically these artists' livelihood, and they heavily rely on stuff like Patreon. So for Apple just suddenly coming out of nowhere saying that, yeah, we're gonna go and want to get a 30% cut of that, it's just gross. Now, thankfully, Patreon does have a way to fight back against this change, and that is if you are someone who has the Patreon app and you're paying one of your favorite content creators or artists that way using Patreon out of Apple device, they ended up making an option where they automatically increase their rates by 30% on the Apple site, so the artist can basically get the same amount of money, which is a compromise that I just straight up don't like, because that is still Patreon having to basically bend over to an extremely big company and letting Apple win. But I don't blame Patreon for doing that at all, because that's basically the only way for them to function on Apple. Now, there is one way to fix this, and that is, don't use Patreon on any Apple devices at all. Yeah, if you're someone who uses an Apple device and you want to donate to one of your favorite content creators or artists' Patreon, please just don't do it on an Apple device. Do it on a computer or on an Android, so you don't give Apple money that they straight up don't deserve. This is something that is a straight up disgusting decision, and it's just a thing that I feel like more people need to know about, because this is just gross. Anyway, that's it. My name is Lua. You have a good day or night.